Please welcome Robert Englund, Heather Langenkamp, Tuesday night, Brooke Bundy, and Amanda Wyss. Come on down. Awesome.
Hi everyone. This panel recording was sponsored by the folks over at adcs.com, and they have some frightfully awesome shirts for you, and you can save 30% by using the code FSNightmare on their site. Now, here's the panel.
Make yourselves comfortable. It is so nice to have you.
Wow. Your outfit is fabulous.
Back at you guys. It's so good to have you. Robert, welcome back. Always good.
Thank you very much. Glad to be back. Pittsburgh!
Yeah! So being that it's a 5-person panel, what I would like to do before we go to questions is just kind of go down the row. And if there's any recollections you want to mention about the film, something, why you think it's still timely, why people still love these movies, anything you may want to just say as an opening little hello, and then we'll get to some questions. We'll start here. Yes,
okay.
we will.
We're all very hoarse from talking to guests all weekend long, so my voice is off. But I think before the pandemic, perhaps people had seen these movies, you know, many dozens of times. But I think people now have seen them hundreds of times because I realized how many, you know, days we spent just enjoying watching horror movies during the pandemic. So it seems like it's on this curve like that. Whenever I ask my, you know, wonderful people out here how many times they've seen it, it's now in the hundreds.
Oh gosh, hundreds?
Hundreds, yeah.
Hundreds, yeah.
Many people yesterday said that.
Wow.
Yeah. That's it for me.
Okay.
I'm kind of speechless at people coming out and just being the most amazing fans ever. Kind, respectful, sweet, just wonderful. And this has been really a joy to be here in Pittsburgh. It's an amazing city with an amazing history. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, that was so beautiful. How will I ever follow that? I have to say the same thing. I mean, I think it's so amazing that there are so many like generations, like different ages, and the people that come up to the table are so amazing. You know, they bring their like, you know, 8-year-old, and they've seen Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's really amazing. And then there's like the other crowd and the older crowd and our crowd, and and I just feel really grateful to be a part of it because it's a real gem. There's something really special about it.
Wow, well said, everybody. You know, when I was filming Nightmare on Elm Street, unlike some other people that were in the movie, I didn't know it was going to be what it's become, and I'm so grateful that I get to be a part of it. Something so classic and beautiful and filled with love from you guys who love it so much and in turn love us. And it's such a privilege and an honor to meet each and every one of you and hear your beautiful stories. And we really do have the best fans in the world, in the entire world.
I think one of the things that I've been taking with me from attending cons in recent years, the thing that I've discovered is that most of our movies really achieve their success, not only in the theatrical release, but also as part of the home video and DVD market. And so many of you have shared stories with me, those of you that are a little older, about being young and terrorizing your mom and dad with a blockbuster dog-eared copy, a Betamax of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I've heard stories about dads and stepdads, you know, putting knives on their fingers and scratching the screen to terrorize their kids. I've heard stories about separated and divorced parents, and dad was trying to be extra cool and letting the kids watch Nightmare on Elm Street, rent it when mom wouldn't, you know, and then mom discovered that the kids knew the entire plot. But I love that idea because Heather and Amanda can attest to this. When it first came out, because of the darkness and the violence, it was controversial. and we were attacked a little bit, and Wes Craven was attacked. And it's rather strange to think of it as being a kind of family-attended film. And yet, over the years, I realized how many families cuddle together, you know, on that old couch with that blanket on the back of the couch wrapped around him, you know, that Afghan from Roseanne that we all had back in the early 80s, and, you know, some lukewarm pizza and some lukewarm beer, you know, and the lights turned down low, and watching Nightmare on Elm Street and sharing it as a kind of bond. And some of those parents are gone now, and I know that some of the fans have told me that they have these great memories of sharing. There's 8 movies of sharing, you know, at least one of them with parents from the past. So I like that we could be part of that as well as just a scary movie, you know, at the local Octoplex, you know, Hell's Octoplex, Monroeville. I just want to say, the other thing is, too, because of the pandemic and this sort of pent-up desire to get back on the road that we all have, and you guys to attend the cons and meet us, and there's a lot of new loot, of new swag, of new art that the artists and the merchandising people and the people doing action figures, they've been busy little beavers during the pandemic, because I'm having trouble finding places to sign, other than the fact that Heather draws all over my gloves, and I have to sign the middle finger. I really am having a trouble finding a place to sign on some of these things because I haven't seen them before. So there's some great new stuff out there. Anyway, I'm blabbed long enough. Let's do Q&A.
Let's do Q&A. Grab a question. We'll try and get to as many as possible. We'll do our best.
All right.
Right down there.
You get to be the first question.
Hello. It's wonderful to have you all at Steel City. Okay, so when I got to the age of getting into horror, the one franchise I wanted to get to was Nightmare on Elm Street, because that was like the box art I would always see on Walmart, the VHS boxes. And finally getting to watching them, I realized that even in the weakest of entries, the characters are still relatable, and I'm wondering if, like, the writers, because the writers had found that nerve pinch of, like, the youth culture, that these movies have somehow become dated, but then become timeless for the youth problems of today.
Well, I think part of that is we have writers with Oscars that worked on Nightmare on Elm Street, and Heather did a great charity reading of the Dream Warriors script at the Whiskey A Go-Go, and it was the earliest draft of Dream Warriors that I'd never read it. And I was reading Freddy, obviously, but I would have volunteered to read what Chuck Russell, our director, read, which was all the incidental descriptions leading up to the dialogue, because it was so darkly poetic. And I think we have to all, you know, agree that the writers really, and the casting is really what made it relatable. I mean, you know, and it is timeless, except for Heather's shoulder pads.
They're coming back, Robert. They're coming back. Please don't bring shoulder pads back.
Looking forward to big hair.
Big hair is always in.
I think so.
We've got another question right down the middle here.
So hello, everyone. Welcome to Steel City Comic Con. Welcome back, Robert Englund, and welcome, Heather. It's really great.
Forget the rest of you.
Oh no. Oh no. No. All of you are welcome. So this is a quick 2-part question for both Heather and Robert. What were both your favorite stunts and scenes to shoot with director Wes Craven, especially Heather, the quicksand staircase scenes? And Robert Englund, how would you describe your favorite parts about working on the Paper Brigade?
Well, you know, I did so many different stunts in all 3 of the movies, and they each were very special in their own way. But of course, I think the bathtub scene was the most original of all the stunts that could ever have been imagined by anybody. So that was a scene where they built a tank and they put a Home Depot bathtub on the top of it to look like a bathtub. Bottom was carved out, and there was a scuba diver underneath me in full scuba gear and an oxygen, and he was under the water for many, many hours. Lifting
the
his
lucky
hand
frog
up and
man.
back, up and back. And Wes would bang on the side of the bathtub to give him his cue. And I just, spent, 7 or 8 hours doing that scene. So that one's the closest to my heart. And the bubbles would get thin at some moments, and I would say, "Can we just beef the bubbles up a little bit here?" Those my modesty bubbles. And every minute of that was just, you just have this adrenaline pumping because you've never done anything like that before. And then in Nightmare 7, I think the scene where it looks like in the film, I'm diving out of a mouth of Freddy into the pool of water with my, just by myself, and then I come out of that. That just, to me, was such a imaginative scene, to enter Freddy's dungeon through this kind of watery waterfall into hell. It had so many, allusions to Dante's Inferno and all of these great books that we'd read about hell. And so that set in particular, and all the stunts where I get to tell Freddy, "Fuck you," with a spear and a big eel in his eyeball, those were great, great stunts.
Before I talk about Paper Brigade, because Heather was talking about the bathtub scene, which has become a classic in cinema now, the images. So my wife and Nancy and I know I married a Nancy. My wife Nancy and I, same bolt of cloth as Heather too. Anyway, we're in Paris and we're being very romantic, and we're doing the pilgrimage down across the street from Notre Dame to the Hemingway 00 bookstore. And you go there and you buy a book and you get the stamp from the store in the book. And it's a thing. It's a thing you do. It's very cool. And we're there and we go next door. There's an old bookstore next door, and they've just received a bunch of movie posters. And I'm leafing through the posters, and there's a giant circus-size horizontal poster from Italy. And you're looking through the steam, and you're at the bottom of the tub. It's like you have a periscope and you're in a little mini sub. And it's the famous gynecological image of Heather. And Heather painted by some Italian artist. And Nancy and I look at her and we knew then that Nightmare on Elm Street was here to stay. There's a line of teenage boys going to buy Heather in the bathtub, outside. But in the 90s, just to shake up my career a little bit and to remind people that I don't drink blood for breakfast, I did some Disney movies, Meet the Deedles and the Paper Brigade. And the Paper Brigade was the movie that was every Saturday night, the first premiere year of the Disney Channel. So it kind of made the Disney Channel. I'm amazed at the success of it. It was written by my late agent's sister. And but all I can really remember about that film was 100 degrees, Salt Lake City, and having to work around molten goose shit.
Okay, we have a question way over to the left, right over here.
Hi. I just wanted to say, first of all, how big of a Nightmare on Elm Street fan I truly am. Robert Englund, you are seriously my horror idol. Favorite horror character of all time. Favorite actor, seriously. So my question is for Robert, how hard was it to play Freddy Krueger?
It's not, you guys, what happens is I have to sit in that makeup chair for 3 hours, and by the time I'm out of it, I'm in a bad mood. It's pretty easy to do. I tell this story a lot. It's not that fresh, but I come in a lot earlier than the rest of the cast because of the makeup. And I'd been there since 5 in the morning one day, and it was maybe 11:30. and we were at this is the original film. We were at the old Desilu Studios in Hollywood, and we had these vintage barber chairs in the makeup room. And I'm sitting there getting touched up, and this is part one, not a lot of money. David Miller's there with this crusty little paintbrush, you know, stabbing me, you know, and working around my mouth because my lips were coming up a little bit because I'd eaten peanut butter and jelly or something. Yeah. Anyway, in waltz Heather Langenkamp and Johnny Depp, banker's hours, right? The two of them coming in 11 a.m. in the morning with their dewy, youthful complexions. Neither of them need makeup. They're so goddamn beautiful. And they sit down in the chair, and our makeup girl brought them presents. It was hot. It was summer, the summer of the Olympics in LA. And Heather and Johnny were presented with little teeny battery-operated pink fans to keep them cool. And I'm sitting there getting stabbed with this bristly brush, you know, dabbing all over me. And I looked over, and for a second, I literally thought, what am I doing? Why did I say yes to this role? You know, I love Wes, but I don't know, am I doing the right thing with my career? I've got a hit television series. Look at these two. I hate them. Whole career ahead of them. Look how beautiful and young they are. They can, oh my, and I said, wait a minute. I can use that as Freddy. And once you have a thought like that, you can remember it when you act. It's called sense memory, and you can just turn that on. That envy that I had for Heather and that envy I had for Johnny, and their youth and their beauty and their careers, I could use as Freddy's hatred for youth and beauty. Because that's what Freddy does. He kills youth and beauty. So,
all right.
Look out, Heather.
We've got a question over here on the left side of the room.
Hi, everybody. Glad to see you this weekend. I recently saw the interview with Don Dock and Robert about the making of the Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 video. Is there anything else you can share from that or any of the other music videos that were made for the movies?
Not really. I mean, that was very complete, you know, with Don and I. So you should watch that, you guys. It's the Gibson guitar show. But I also did one of the first rap videos ever with the Fat Boys. So I'm sort of proud of that. But that's about it. That's about me. That's my MTV totality.
And we're still way over here on the left against the wall right here.
All right. Even the weakest entries, we got to say that we all have to be fans of every single film in the Elm Street franchise.
What do you mean weak, punk?
God, I love you, Robert. That being said, if Hollywood came along and offered Robert and Nancy enough money to where they would retcon every movie except for the first part, like they've done with Halloween and Texas Chainsaw, would you do it?
Repeat that a little, just...
If they retconned all of the sequels and just made the original Nightmare, if they did a sequel to that, just an actual sequel, 40 years later, where maybe Nancy is looking to get Freddy, pretty much like we did with Halloween 2018. Would you guys do it?
Of course, of course. I think when you've been working your whole life. No, I mean, you know, I feel like we've made this such a part of our lives. I don't think that there, you know, would be a scenario that I wouldn't seriously consider, because Nancy's been such a part of my life. I would hate to say no to an opportunity like that and give the fans another opportunity to see Nancy and Freddy in battle once again. I think it would be really exciting, actually.
I don't know. It sounds to me like Freddy versus Viagra. Or menopause on Elm Street. I don't know.
I agree with you on that one.
All right, over here to the right, we've got a question right here in the front row.
With Nightmare on Elm Street being such a scary film to so many, was there any horror film that ever gave you guys nightmares or scared you, per se?
Brooke, do you have a favorite horror movie?
You know, I can't remember the name of it, but I remember seeing it
Yeah, there you go.
I remember seeing it when I was a kid. I mean, a little kid. It was with the Reverend that had Love and Hate.
Oh, Robert Mitchum.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Directed by Charles Lott.
Yep.
It was
Night of the Hunter.
It was. I was a little kid. I was maybe 7, and chasing the 2 children through the swamp. I was like, I mean, my face was like this color. I was just like that. And they did a remake that came out like 25, 30 years later. I didn't want to see it. I thought, I've seen it once. It was really, really. There was just something so diabolical about the Love and Hate. So that's like a major one for me.
Tuesday.
I think the scariest movie for me is got to be The Exorcist. I can't even, like, when Linda Blair's at these shows, I'm like, Linda, you're freaking me out. When I went up to her table, I was like, can we turn those pictures around? I mean, she just totally, that movie is so real, and yeah, it's just done so real. You know, and when she comes down the stairs and pees on the carpet, I'm like, okay, that's the time it's over. I gotta check out right now. Yeah, that's it for me.
Heather, have you been influenced by David? Have you on horror movies? Did he turn it on to stuff that you hadn't seen before?
We really, since we do this in our daily lives, bringing everybody as much blood and gore as possible, like we really watch baseball and Antiques Roadshow almost every day. In fact, we've come against this wall of like too much blood and gore in our lives, and so, especially with American Horror Story for 6 years, we finally just said we got to lay off the blood and gore for a while.
What's your favorite horror movie, Amanda?
Jaws. I grew up at the beach. I was a surfer, and my older sister's friend took me and my little sister to see Jaws, and we freaked out, climbed all over him, and were literally on his head. He got in a lot of trouble for taking us, and I never again went surfing. I never again jumped off my dad's boat. We used to take the boat to Catalina and swim in the ocean, and the last time I was in a large body of water, I was water skiing. I fell. I heard the theme. I freaked out, started screaming for the boat. So it's the movie that's impacted me most as far as making me afraid of something in the real. I went in as one person and came out as a separate person.
Well, I think the future of horror is Jordan Peele and the gentleman, I can't think of his name right now, who directed The Witch and Lighthouse with William Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. If you haven't seen those, that's a kind of great, classy, dark, psychotic work that's being created. And Jordan Peele's just really turned the corner into getting like the idea of African folk tales, you know, mining African folk tales or Ukrainian folk tales or or even Scandinavian folk tales that we haven't seen or we're not familiar with, and making them contemporary or at least making them relevant to an international audience. I really think that's going to be the future, and I think there's just some great work going on. I think in terms of past stuff, I remember, sleeping over with my buds in elementary school to watch Frankenstein on the Late Show and The Bride of Frankenstein, things like that, and those were really influential. You can't imagine how many of us had that 3-ring binder blue notebook with Frankenstein, doodled on the. Or you get some guy that could cartoon really good to do a Boris Karloff for you. But yeah, I don't really know what I would call influential to me, but some things hold up better than others. Rosemary's Baby really holds up. And there's also a great little Brian De Palma movie called Sisters, starring Margot Kidder from Superman. And it's a really good cast, great split screen, and full of surprises. Fun, too. I like both of those. Oh, Amanda just mentioned the Audrey Hepburn thriller, Wait Until Dark, about the blind girl trapped in her Greenwich Village apartment. That's also really tight suspense.
So we're going to go way over to the left again. And we got a question here.
Hi. Being that I'm in the 80s, I remember my first movie I saw was Freddy's Dead, because I had to, again, sneak it away from my parents and get with one of my buddies. So one of my earliest memories of Nightmare on Elm Street was walking through like Toys R Us and seeing all the toys and stuff that were created, and hearing you talk about how controversial the initial reception of the first movie was. What was your reaction to seeing just all the merchandise like in like toy stores and stuff like that?
Well, I think that was a mistake New Line made. They didn't know. They'd never had a hit before. They had been importing foreign films. In fact, my first dubbing session on Nightmare on Elm Street, I was working in New York, and I had to do it in New York, and I literally got to follow Liv Ullmann, who just won a special Oscar, by the way. I got to follow her, and the headphones were still warm from Liv's cheeks. But New Line didn't know how to merchandise Nightmare on Elm Street, so they merchandised it too young after the original. The original fans of Nightmare on Elm Street were young men into heavy metal, early punk rock, and also college boys in dormitories. Those were sort of the original fans, and it spread. Then those college boys went home for Thanksgiving and Christmas and corrupted their younger brothers and sisters, and the word got out. But that's how it originally started, and then of course it became international almost immediately as well. But it was an error. They just didn't, they'd never done, they just, the first people that knocked on the door and offered them, that saw the foresight of merchandising Nightmare on Elm Street, happened to be toys, and it was just the wrong thing. We got in trouble for that too, a bit, yeah. But then later on, now there's just such great stuff out there. I mean, I wish I had more wall space for some of the cool stuff. There's a new poster of Heather, and Heather's in bed asleep, and her hair's cascading over the pillow, and then there's this great shadow of Freddy across Heather, and it's on one of those Dutch angles. It's like, a corkscrewed angle. You can kind of hang this poster 2 or 3 different ways, but it's really great, and I've been signing that this weekend. It's really cool.
Okay, we got time for 2 more questions. You guys are headed back to your tables after this for autographs and photos and all that. Am I correct?
No, we're going to Burger King.
All right, awesome.
All right, well, we're going to do this question over here on the right wall, and then we'll take the last question over there on the left wall. So you go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to know, like in the first movie when Freddy's coming down the alleyway, what did you guys use to make his arms so long? And the second question I have is for all you guys. What advice would you give to a younger generation trying to get into the special effects makeup part of filming?
Well, why don't we answer the second part of that question first? Heather, you would...
Can you repeat that again, just real quick?
It's about getting into special effects and makeup effects.
What advice would you give to a younger generation wanting to get into special effects makeup of filming and stuff?
Yeah, so there's 2 areas of special effects. There's special effects like those long arms. That was a special effect that was made with big, like wires, basically. I mean, they were rigid wires attached onto a harness that just were kind of wobbly, and they actually looked absolutely ridiculous. I mean, walking by him and down the alley, I just thought Wes, he'd given in, like his standard had kind of gone down that night a little bit. I felt like, oh, this will never fly. But then Robert was there, ready to save the day, and so I thought they'll never use that. But and then there's special effects and makeup, and that's what I know more about. And I always advise people to take every single art class in high school that they have available to you. Take drawing, painting, sculpture, ceramics. Learn how to use your hands and become as good as possible in those arts, illustration, and then go to your junior college. Do not, spend a lot of money training yourself, because you can do so much with a really great art teacher pretty much anywhere. And then develop a portfolio of, it doesn't have to be a bloody eye or anything. It can just be a sculpture of a bird, or you can, illustration of your mom, or, whatever you feel is your best work, and show it to people who are looking for artists, because truly, aside from mold makers, which is another art form, we're all hiring artists, who know how to do these really fine, fine, specific kinds of things. So that's my advice.
Mm-hmm. We got the last question, and contrary to what you heard, they're not going to Burger King. They're going to be going back to their table for signing. Here's the last question. Before we go, thank you so much for doing this. Let's get our last question.
I was just wondering what your guys' opinion was on the 2009 remake, seeing all you guys' characters played out, but not as greatest success later on as your guys' characters are?
Well, I think the problem was not the film. I think the film came out too soon. I think it was a little premature to do a reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street 1. And because they had just done Freddy versus Jason, so which was a huge hit and reiterated the theme of Nightmare on Elm Street, and people were used to that. They weren't quite ready, so they jumped the gun on that, which I think hurt it. It's an extraordinary cast. I mean, Rooney Mara. I think Heather would be the first to say Rooney Mara's a wonderful actress. Jackie Earle Haley's terrific. He's so great in Dark Shadows with Johnny Depp. You see his comedy in that. He's great in RoboCop. He's in one of my favorite movies called Breaking Away, about the local boys versus the college brats, and they're a bicycle team. They fantasize being an Italian touring bicycle team. With a buddy of mine, Dennis Christopher, who you guys know from Django Unchained. But yeah, I think that they just released that too soon. I bet if it came out this year, it would have been more successful. I heard they reshot the opening, and at a great cost, which may have added a lot to the budget. And the opening I love, but it throws the movie out of balance for me. It makes the movie, you need to meet us all. You need to meet the characters, the kids, when they're healthy, wealthy, and wise. You know, they're happy, go lucky. And then you need to see this dark cloud appear, this common denominator nightmare, and start to darken their lives. And in that one, everybody's sort of walking around like, they haven't slept in 6 months from the get-go.
But can I say something? I started to watch it, but for me, I mean, it was really quite a disappointment. I know there were a lot of really talented actors in it, but I really don't think there's anybody that can play Freddy like Robert. It just isn't happening. Oh yeah. I mean, he's an amazing actor. Jack Earle Haley is amazing, but he just, he doesn't have the swagger and the sex appeal and kind of.
I'm taller.
Yes, you are, and better.
Guys, no, in all fairness, Jackie, he's got so many terrific movies that if and I believe he's really part of Hollywood royalty. I think he's related to Wizard of Oz. Check out the last name. You'll see what I mean.
Well, we can't thank you guys enough for doing this. This is so awesome. What a way to start the Sunday. The Nightmare Panel. Give it up. Robert Englund, Heather Langenkamp. Tuesday night, Brooke Bundy and Amanda Wyss. You could do so much better than that.
Hey all, don't forget to check out the amazing shirts over at 80cheese.com. The folks who sponsored this panel recording, and use the code FSNightmare to get 30% off. With that savings, you can sleep soundly. Though, is sleep really a good idea? Maybe you should watch another panel. See you soon.
This is John Glover, and you are watching Fandom Spotlight. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Lionel Luther recommends it. Have some fun. Follow your fandom.